just when you think it couldn't possibly get worse for Justin Trudeau, somehow he manages to dig himself an even bigger hole. Trudeau is setting off for a NATO summit. And for those who maybe aren't familiar with our NATO contribution to the defense budget, we're always missing our targets. Justin Trudeau has obligations to give NATO money or increase our defense spending to match a certain percentage of our GDP, 2%. Justin Trudeau has fallen short every single year. But this year, he said, not to worry, we're going to hit 1.75%. Still short, but it's an improvement. We should be rewarded for that. Failure should be rewarded is how Justin Trudeau thinks. No wonder this country is in the absolute shitter. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And you might want to double check to see if you're subscribed. YouTube has been unsubscribing people from this channel, so you may not even know, but YouTube could have done it without your knowing. Yay, that is YouTube for you. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So obviously we're going to start off with the polls. Conservatives sitting at 213 projected seats, and somehow the Liberals went up. They went up from 67 to 72. I'm not sure how. Maybe because Justin Trudeau didn't appear at the Calgary Stampede. Maybe that's his secret to getting more polling, is not showing up, not speaking, staying in the shadows. I mean, it worked for Joe Biden, right? 81 million votes. So maybe it'll work for Justin Trudeau. Yeah, I'm sure. 99% likely across the board for the Conservatives to win a majority government and for winning the most seats. So it's still looking very, very good for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. But what's not looking good is what I'm about to show you here. So Harrison Faulkner from True North shared True North's post saying, "I can't wait until foreign police officers have to use Google Translate at traffic stops to communicate with Canadians. What could go wrong?" This is in light of a new announcement that foreigners interested in becoming police officers will soon be able to immigrate to Alberta and become permanent residents. That's a little, I don't know. That seems like a wild thing to do as like a foreigner. Like, you come to Canada as a police officer with maybe no police background, or police background in a country that has very different standards than here in Canada. I feel like there's other jobs that would be better fit than a police officer. That's like kind of a big job. You have a lot of power and you hold guns, and I don't know. It just seems a little weird. So Alberta may want to revisit that before there's an insane amount of backlash. And speaking of backlash, Canada Revenue Agency is going after Canadians for all that money that the government gave away. CRA issues legal warnings in a bid to collect $9.5 billion. Let's take a look at this video.
There are legal warnings on the way from the CRA to Canadians who may still be owing in COVID loans. After ruling many people ineligible for these payments, the tax agency is still trying to collect billions of dollars. CTV's Kamal Karmali on the court battles brewing.
This is musician Patrick Massey in his element. It's a passion of love, not money, only getting paid for the odd gig. So when COVID struck, his career hit pause, and so did his income. He then applied for federal COVID benefits.
I realized I qualified for it, so I jumped on it.
But now the Canada Revenue Agency says he needs to pay back more than $27,000. It says Massey wasn't eligible for the benefits.
It just stresses me out, It's beyond belief.
Massey says the CRA asked him to prove he had a steady income back in 2019, an income that was lost when the pandemic hit. The problem is with multiple freelance jobs, he says the CRA is disputing what he earned as a self-employed individual, even though his local MP vouched for him, saying he has provided abundant evidence.
This has happened by the constituents of mine who have work that is less regular, if you will.
The CRA now asking Massey to pay it all.
That's honestly absolutely insane to get a local MP to back what's happening in the community for an individual case. Like that's applaudable. That's pretty crazy.
Back. So are you afraid of any legal repercussions?
No, because where are they going to get the money from? I don't have any. You can't take blood from a stone, right?
The CRA began sending out legal warnings this month to Canadians who were not eligible for the COVID benefits but took the money anyways and haven't paid it back. The agency is now trying to retrieve $9.5 billion, including more than $5 billion from CERB and billions more from other benefits. Now, many Canadians are fighting back against the CRA's demands for repayment, which may be a losing cause.
It can garnish wages. It can take away refunds that were otherwise entitled to you. It can take away your GST credit or any kind of other credit you're getting. It could seize assets of yours.
Tax lawyers say people can still go to a federal court to fight the CRA's decision. Meanwhile, the Canada Revenue Agency says it remains committed to being flexible with these repayments. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thanks.
And this is something that I have heard of, not on mainstream media to this extent, but I've seen it in the comments. I've seen it on Facebook groups. I've heard, this discussion out in public where people that took CERB, rightfully so, are now asked to repay that. And they're being penalized on, the back end of things by Canada Revenue. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary that for certain things, the government can say, yes, this is something you qualify for. And then, years later say, actually, no, we're not taking any accountability and give us back the money plus interest. Very bizarre, very corrupt, but also kind of expected by the Canadian government. And that's not to say that people should have been able to, hold a crystal ball and see this into the future that the government would do this. But now that it's happening in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, no, that checks out. That makes sense that the government would be trying to do this to people. It's on par with everything else that the government is doing to screw over its citizens. But I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments. Are you affected by this? Are you forced to pay back all this money? Like, let me know down below in the comments if you're a part of, being a target of the Canadian government. Next up, we have headlines that aren't looking very favorable for Justin Trudeau. So Trudeau is scheduled to be in a NATO summit very, very soon. And this is what happens when you Google Trudeau news, right? Trudeau heads for the hot seat in NATO. NATO is losing patience with one of its own members. Trudeau to call for staying irresolute on Ukraine. Canada can expect criticism from U.S. over defense spending. Everything is bad Trudeau, bad Trudeau, bad Trudeau. Why? What's going to happen to Trudeau? What's NATO going to do to Trudeau? And I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. I mean, will Canada ever get kicked out by NATO? If it ever would happen, I believe, very firmly that it would happen under the Justin Trudeau government. He's just so incompetent. He's not paying what needs to be paid. If NATO is saying 2% of a country's GDP, that's what you owe to the defense budget, you can't brag about paying 1.75% or 1.5% or even 1% going, we're almost there. We're almost at the basic requirement to be in NATO. It's just not a very good look, and there are repercussions. And guess what? Justin Trudeau won't be facing any of those repercussions. We will. Increase taxes, increase this, increase that. Who knows? But a lot of people also seem to think that we shouldn't belong in NATO. Let me know if you are one of those people. I don't know. I stand very on the fence about it. I was living my whole life under the impression that NATO good. We should be part of these very large alliances, and we should be playing the game, so to speak, and scratch their back, they scratch ours type of thing. But now I'm starting to see a different rhetoric that NATO's bad. They're the bad guys, and we should maybe distance ourselves a little bit. Stay on good terms, but distance ourselves from that. But let me know what you guys think about NATO. We're going to take a look, though, at what's kind of lying ahead for Justin Trudeau, because it's not good, folks. He's going into this representing Canada, and there's going to be a lot of criticism, a lot of heat headed towards Justin Trudeau.
This is Robert Baines, President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada. Robert, welcome. Thank you for being here. Now, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau heads to Washington, what are you looking forward to with this NATO summit?
Well, there's obviously a lot on the table at the moment. I think that NATO has a lot on its agenda. If you've ever had a night where you're having trouble sleeping, you can read through the past communiques of NATO. And every year, the list of things that NATO is dealing with grows longer and longer. This year is going to be no different. There are 4 big things on the agenda. Number 1, of course, is Ukraine and NATO's response to the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia, shoring up support for that conflict and making sure that there is unity. Unity is always the baseline of NATO. It's the whole way that it works, and the reason that it's such a force multiplier for Canada and so many other middle powers like our country. It's also going to be concentrating on deterrence and defense, the real bedrock of how NATO maintains its unity and protects countries like Canada. It's also going to be taking a look at the various different global partners that NATO has, making sure that NATO is always looking to the rest of the world and to maintain security all over the globe instead of just one particular point on the globe. And then finally, it's going to be paying attention to burden sharing, and that's where Canada comes in, of course. NATO only works because every country puts in a little bit of effort to get a lot back in the form of security. So Canada right now, as you mentioned, is below the 2% threshold. That's 2% of GDP spent on defense. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of concentration on that, and perhaps some form of an announcement from Canada to reassure our allies.
I see. Now, when you look at Canada's relationship with other countries, specifically the U.S. at this time, what are relations looking like?
Well, our relations have always been very good with the United States of America. We co-host NORAD, looking after the defense of North America. We're both founding partners of NATO and have worked together on countless NATO operations. But the current strong words that friends can have from time to time, I think, have hit their mark. Not only the U.S. ambassador to NATO, but also our own American ambassador here in Canada have mentioned how it's expected that Canada will reach the minimum GDP contribution of 2% spent on our own defense. And when I say that, I have to be careful because it's not like we're giving money to NATO or to some other body. It's just an expectation that we will spend that money on our own defense, on things that Canada needs. And the idea is that signal will make sure that Canada is part of the burden sharing that makes NATO so effective.
Is there anything that you're hearing that makes you think that there will be some kind of announcement coming?
No, just reading the room. Canada will be the only one at this summit who doesn't have a plan to reach 2% of GDP. Our last announcement got us to 1.79, I believe, and that will be in 2030. We just need to go further and make sure that we show everybody that we do have a plan to get to 2%. There's always going to be difficulty in prognosticating, trying to predict the future, what our armed forces will look like, what kind of kit we will be able to purchase. But at least saying that we will and planning for something, that is the key to making sure that Canada is not an outlier in NATO. Again, the organization that's based on unity, strength through unity. Canada has to be a part of it.
All right, Robert, thank you very much for your time. Robert Baines, President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada.
See, it also doesn't even matter what we use or how much money we spend on our kits and equipment here in Canada, because all of that goes to Ukraine anyways. So NATO is just giving money away indirectly to Ukraine and in big support of that. And I guarantee you're going to have another video that surfaces of Justin Trudeau going, Slava Ukraini, at this NATO summit when nobody asked him at all. He's just going to shout it out at the top of his lungs because that's what he likes to do to his boyfriends. Mwah! Zelensky. Next up, we have a very funny clip of Rolling Stone fans at a Vancouver concert who start booing Justin Trudeau when his name gets mentioned. This is just hilarious and very on cue with what's going on here in Canada.
We love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans about that.
Panic starts to set in. Uh-oh. Everyone's booing me. Uh-oh.
Congratulations on the Canadian soccer team getting to the semi-final. Fucking brilliant.
What do you do when a stadium full of people starts booing you and you thought that what you said wouldn't get boos? Well, you change the topic. Hey, sports. How about that sports team? Kind of funny and also very sad that we're still stuck with Justin Trudeau, but hopefully not for much longer. I think that his dictatorship here is coming to an end. I mean, everywhere you go, man, it's inevitable. You can't hide from it. Everywhere you go, whether it's in Ottawa, on the East Coast, the West Coast, Alberta, in America, overseas, anywhere in the world that Justin Trudeau attends and makes a public appearance, opens his mouth and juice box, water bottle type of words come out, he is met with a full force of heckles, of boos, and you're going to see this even at the NATO summit. People are going to challenge him. People are going to say, look, man, you're full of crap. Why are you still prime minister? Like, just resign. You lost the biggest by-election ever. Why are you even here? We want to talk to Pierre. Pierre should be at the NATO summit instead of you. So it's going to be very interesting how this turns out. And also, yeah, great job, everybody who was at that concert, who contributed to the boos of Justin Trudeau. Way to be patriotic. That's kind of the most patriotic thing that you could do right now. I mean, waving a Canadian flag, obviously, right? Being passionate about Canada and Canadian culture. And then next up is wanting the best for Canada, which also means get Trudeau out and F Trudeau and boo Trudeau. So that is awesome. We're going to see more and more of that, especially as we get closer to the election, whenever that happens. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. What do you think about this concert? Were you there? Would you love to be in a concert hall where someone mistakenly says, yeah, how about that Justin Trudeau and that good guy? And then everyone, including yourself, just boos personally? That'd be a pretty fun experience. But that's where we're going to end today's video. On your way out, I would like to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. And we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.